All right, Richie Mars, we are live here on YouTube after Monday Night Raw. Now, I've done the YouTube live gimmick a few times for these previews. This one, I don't really suspect a name. Like, I don't suspect a crowd, but hey, you never know. But what we are here, we are hot off the presses of Monday Night Raw, and I'm glad we waited to kind of jump into this feud.
Yeah, absolutely, because this has been kind of a big kind of graph of a feud, because we had like some flatlining weeks, and then it just all of a sudden, boom, just shot up right, like finally got some life into there, and yeah, this feud never really left past like first gear through like the first chunk of it. But I feel like the last like 4 weeks or so, that's what really built that contained story that I think a lot of people were kind of hoping for and what was missing in the initial buildup.
Yeah, I get the sentiment of it. 10 weeks is a long time between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. And it's been a melatonin way to get here, but they've woken up in the last month or so, right? So let's kind of take a little journey on getting there, and then we can kind of dive into it like we always do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Uso surprises the world and wins the Royal Rumble.
Mhm.
And then the night after pretty much calls his shot that Gunther is the title that he's going for after celebrating and doing the yeeting. And the first time it was cool. And then SmackDown and the double yeet, the stops. We'll kind of get into that to the tail end of this, but I feel like I'm over that part of that. But anyways, early on, he calls his shot for Gunther. And throughout that, we have many chapters, right? The first kind of being like an A-Town Down Under, kind of being like, you won WrestleMania, but are you really that good type of thing?
Right.
And then Jey goes out and disposes of them and disposes of Austin Theory in 30 seconds, even though it wasn't scripted to go 30 seconds in the show rundown, but they went long and they did it. But still, storyline-wise, he destructed of Austin Theory in 30 seconds. So why would Jey feel lack of confidence? Because ultimately, that's what Jey was establishing in himself, was lack of confidence to go against the Beast Gunther, because he is 0-3 against Gunther. Once for the Intercontinental title on Raw, once for the King of the Ring semifinals on Raw, and then once on Saturday Night Main Event for the World Heavyweight title, which he will be challenged for at WrestleMania the week before Royal Rumble. So Gunther is supremely more equipped than Jey Uso in Jey Uso's mind. But Jey Uso has the heart, he has the momentum, and he has everything coming out of Royal Rumble. But Gunther is so dominant with his presence that the insecurities and the doubt really set in within Jey Uso. So it's been a long journey through the first 5 weeks of this 10-week journey. Week 6, Jey Uso is found in the hallway with his brother Jimmy, and Jimmy kind of gives him a pat on the back. This is, brother, you've got this. We've been up and down the road forever. We've been attached to the hip since birth. If anyone knows that you can do this, it's me. And he's like, I'm going to go show you next week. I'm going to go out and I'm going to go wrestle Gunther, and I'm going to show you that it's doable. He goes out and has an okay match with Gunther, and ultimately Gunther goes on to dominate him. And then we get the aftermatch fireworks. Gunther leaves. After Jey runs off, after Gunther goes after Jimmy to go get some more, and then he has the sly catch him from behind. We have the handcuffs, and we have the bloody beatdown. And finally, this feud is ready to go. I understand the long journey to get here. I get it. But we are cooking with gas 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we find Jey Uso having his confidence. We find Jey Uso really like, I saw the blood. He had to talk to his mother. He's going to do it for his brother. He's going to do it for his family. And he find that doubt leaves the surface, right? So we're good. And then Gunther sees it in his eyes that perhaps the Yeet Man is yeeting with confidence. And maybe Gunther needs to kind of play those mind games a little bit more, or Gunther needs to kind of set his tone, and we get that tonight. We get a phenomenal Gunther promo full of confidence, bravado, and really just enough with the yeet. It's going to be one-on-one in the ring, and you are not better than me. With a shadow of a doubt, I've beaten you 3 times. You cannot hang with me. I am the ring general, so on and so forth. Utter dominance from promo that he's going to set on Jey Uso, and awesome. And then one last time we get Jey Uso with the yeeting, and I like that he shedded the orange, shedded the pink, shedded the colors, and I've noticed a black and silver, not really because of the Raiders, but
Mhm.
because of the Raiders, but also his personality is confident. It is kind of the Yeet. It's more than the Yeet. It's
Mhm.
more than the crowd. It's more than that. It's really who he is because he needs to be himself to defeat Gunther at WrestleMania. And of course, the crowd can get him there, but ultimately, Gunther's so dominant and so strong that he can't do it. I did take a step back where he did the round two of the yeeting and the round two of the music, and he didn't really have that dire straits promo. He was a little bit confident. Richie, has he gone full circle and is he overconfident heading into WrestleMania?
Well, it's kind of a flip-flop of how we started and how we ended with this build, right? It was Gunther who was more calm, cool, collected, and Jay who was more of the hot-headed one, and now we have that complete reverse of that. And now, if you notice, Gunther's promo was very good. It was a good finality for him.
Yes.
But I like the subtle thing here where it's like he said it to everybody's face but Jay's. Like, he didn't say this in front of Jay. He had the opportunity to last week, but he was tongue-tied. Jay is now the one who's kinda, in control playing those mind games as opposed to Gunther in the beginning of that. So it's kinda like a neat little, subtle flip-flop of the whole, relationship between Gunther and Jay, where Jay is now the one using kinda like the yeeting to the advantage of getting inside Gunther's head. Now Gunther, who claims that, he doesn't let anything rattle him, we saw him rattled, on the go home edition, and that just spells, good for Jay in this scenario. And I do like how they incorporated that, over the top rope dive flip, whether that was intentional or not. People probably will go for it wasn't scripted, but they did implement it into the story really well. And Jay losing confidence and not being himself and adding it as a part of the story just made it a little bit more natural because there were already doubters with Jay when he won the Rumble, because a lot of people this is probably the biggest disconnect from what I read online and what I hear with my ears on the television. And to me, it's just like, why not just give him the chance? Give him the chance to at least fail. And that's what he's getting here right now. And I think all of Gunther's matches with Jay have been very good. And I feel like this story in the first half, was in first gear, but now we've picked up, and now Jay does his best work when he is very emotional. Like the promo after he won the Rumble was very good in my opinion, even if he was stumbling on his words, but you kind of felt that connection.
Played into it though, right?
Yeah, it's like Jay connected with the audience because you could tell this guy is real. These are his real emotions. He really feels this. And yeah, the yeet can get a little bit irritating if it's as the promo last week we heard the crowd just wouldn't
Even
stop.
he was just like, all right, guys, it's not
Yeah.
Yeet time.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of like the Austin what, where it's like the dude's over that people just want to say yeet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like I think this gamble is going to pay off for WWE and for Jay, and it's been a very solid story. I've been very content with the later half as opposed to the first half. Got a little weird with the A-Town Down Under and Alpha Academy kind of tie in there, gets more people on the show. I understand, but they kind of just faded into the night, after the
Yeah, it
dive.
kind of told you in a way that this ain't closing night one, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it told you then that A-Town Dunder and Alpha Babes are kind of lingering here. So this is
Yeah,
one of
and
those
it
three main
yeah, and
events.
it's one of those things where I think WrestleMania, because they did in the 2010s for a while, where the verbiage was gets an automatic title shot going into WrestleMania, not
That's what it
exactly the
really
main
should
event.
be. Yeah.
It's like it's the main, and they're advertising main event. Jey Uso is no longer it's not a nickname now. He's the actual main event. But the thing with WWE and a lot of fans, I'm not sure realize it. They don't know the actual definition of words.
Yeah.
They'll have 4 or 5 main events when main event is traditionally the match that goes on last. We have an undisputed WWE champion, but it is disputed technically because we are talking about this world championship match. So it's not
Mhm.
undisputed in that sense. So it's one of those things where I think people are going to look back on it and people are going to appreciate it more than people are appreciating it now.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's like with most builds to WrestleMania, where it's like people are only going to remember the good, and they're not going to, unless it was like really bad, like Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler bad, like they're not going to reference it. Like I did an example of this, like Rock Austin 2. No one remembers The Rock in a hardcore title match. No one remembers The Rock defending the WWF title against William Regal. No one remembers, or tries to forget Deborah's involvement and then dropped halfway through. They would just
Or
remember
cookies.
they remember My Way. They remember the sit down interviews with JR, and they remember them like stunning, brawling, rock bottoms, all that kind of stuff. And that's pretty much the build. But it's like if you watched it week to week, it wasn't really anything special comparatively as we come to know and love, just nostalgia wise. And I feel like this feud in particular is gonna be a lot more fondly remembered as the years go on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of building blocks here through these 10 or 12 weeks that
Mhm.
will play out past WrestleMania with whatever result they decide to go with in this main event. Well, said main event, whatever, right? So I feel that Gunther's going to be on a journey after this if he loses,
Yeah.
similar to last year's. Before I go down that journey, do you think Sami Zayn defeating Gunther at WrestleMania 40 for the Intercontinental title would take away the meaning of like the impact, excuse me, that Jey Uso winning at WrestleMania 41 would be for the World Heavyweight title? Do you think what that happening a year ago would take away from Jey pretty much?
I don't think so, to be honest with you, because you kind of built in the story that Jay can't beat this guy. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if he was like undefeated or not. Like that's the crux of the story is that he can't beat this guy who's considered by many the top that WWE has to offer. And Jay, I remember even 6 months ago, people were begging, like pleading Jay to win a singles championship. They're like, this is Jay's time. There were people who wanted him to win over Roman at that SummerSlam match, which I think you were at, right?
Yeah. That's where the Yeet started.
Yeah, so he has had the crowd behind him, and he has like that general connection. And I don't think, as much as the people of Sammy, I don't think it's as deep as Jay right now, currently, or just like in general, because that bloodline story, whether people want to admit it or not, created a bunch of different characters, and you could argue Jay was the most developed out of all of them when it started to when it presumably ended. Whether it's like you want to say WrestleMania 40, that's when the peak ended of the bloodline story, or if you want to say the Netflix thing, that's when the bloodline story happened, or you could argue that it's still happening. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's like Jay was probably had that best development out of any WWE character that we've had in quite some time.
Now, do you think he will need to harpen back to any of that right hand man or maybe mid 2022 Jey Uso? Not silent, but like confident and angry. Do you think that character trait will have to be played within the match against Gunther to kind of get him to succeed? Or do you think the crowd and the yeet and the underneath baby face is enough?
You need to diverse some characteristics once you finally make it to the top, unless you're going to be like kind of a parody of yourself.
Yeah.
When a lot of people probably are think Jay's already a parody of himself, with the Yeet stuff and leaning too far into that. Because we've seen many people who were beloved heels, but when they turned babyface, then it's like all the things that made them cool, they lost. You know, and I feel with Jay, you do need to balance that seriousness. And I think Jay does serious really well. He does aloofness really well too,
Yeah.
like that. Like RVD was. He was like RVD was really good at aloofness, and RVD wasn't really like an angry character, but like hey, this is a guy that we should take seriously. And I do think Jay balancing that more serious role would be a tremendous benefit for him as an overall character.
Now, I brought up that they've done a good job in this feud of building out a few scenarios for the winner or loser on either side of the fence here
Mhm.
post WrestleMania, right? Gunther can go down a journey, or Jay can shed his characteristics of aloofness, like you just nicely said, right?
Mhm.
Would the color need to be completely shedded, and perhaps the babyface persona need to be completely shedded for Jey Uso if he were to lose this to get to the top where he needs to be? Or if he were to lose this, would it be completely damaging and this would be the absolute peak of Jey Uso?
I mean, you have like Jay winning the biggest match of his career with the Royal Rumble, and then building up to the presumed first world title like shot at a WrestleMania by himself. It's almost like a make or break scenario, I would think, with this iteration of the Jey Uso character. We've seen many people who would take the story as like, oh, why didn't they pull the trigger right here? Or this was the perfect time to pull the trigger. But like, you know, when those moments don't happen, then those participants aren't the same again. Like you had Lex Luger, you know, a lot of people were thinking Cody before WrestleMania 40. You know, it's like the term "lugered him" is a thing in the like lexicon for professional wrestling for building somebody up and having momentum, but then coming at that like standstill.
Yeah.
And I feel like with Jay, like I think people are looking for a Jay win. I'm not sure if people want to see a Jay run in particular
Okay.
because the jury is still out on how he is as a singles champion. I think people liked him as the Intercontinental Champion, like fine enough, but we only had him for like what, a month, maybe, like
Yeah.
as IC champion. So this is gonna be like the first test of like him carrying like the world championship. And is he gonna be portrayed as like the guy that is gonna end the show, or is he gonna be like the CM Punk 2008 world champion, where it's like he's holding the title, but he's like not the guy that we're focusing on. We're still focusing on Cena, Batista, Jericho, Shawn Michaels, all those other guys. It's like you don't want to be world champion and then be fourth or fifth on the starting lineup.
Yeah. So, all right. So we looked at Jey Uso as a loser here, and pretty much what you went full circle being is he's totally ready to win, and I would agree with that character wise, right? We'll talk about him winning afterwards. Let's talk about Gunther losing this match. I think there's been great building blocks with Gunther. And the reason why I brought up Sammy earlier is we've done this twice where we've been a dominant champ for pretty much a long time leading into this WrestleMania. And perhaps we were a bit overconfident. Now, was that overconfident is because he somehow shedded Imperium? Does he need to kind of isolate himself with other people to kind of build up that pristine confidence as the ring general so he can focus on the ring general so he doesn't get involved with the yeeting and letting the yeeting get to him? Or does he need to isolate with people like Imperium around him so he can stay absolutely laser focused in the ring and proclaiming his crown as the ring general or the intercontinental champion or the world champion or whatever he is, pristine wise? Does he isolate himself with people, or does he lose and kind of find himself in? He has a babyface characteristic in him for sure, and every good heel can turn a babyface and not change much. If Gunther was to turn babyface coming out of this in a few months, I don't think he has to change much of his presentation whatsoever.
No, I mean it's like it's kind of like the Austin heel turn or the babyface turn. He didn't really change any characteristics. It just depended on who he went up against, you know. And I
Yeah,
think that's what Triple H is doing well with creative is just he's making popular guys that you want to watch, not necessarily where it's like you have to be strictly babyface, strictly heel. You could have like a good mix of things. Like we have one of the triple threat main events or both triple threats. You know, no one's pretty much like quote unquote the bad guy. You know, it's like these are three guys with personal issues with each other, and it's almost like you choose on who you want to root for. You know, we're not forcing somebody to be the bad guy here, like in previous iterations or with previous wrestling iterations. Like this guy is the heel, but the crowd still cheers him. But the story's going to play as if he's the bad guy. And with Gunther turning babyface, I think there is an opportunity there. But I think he's like that perfect like Drago villain. You know what I mean? Where that I feel like a babyface run for Gunther would just kind of be a little haphazard. It just really depends on the heel side to see if there's a heel that would be like up there for him to challenge. I think McIntyre would probably be one of the current ones. That would probably be a good program for him if they want to do that. But pivoting off that, I think this world title run, as much as people were disappointed by it, I think Randy was probably the only credible one that people thought that solidified Gunther's reign. It did a lot for him character-wise.
yes,
And did a lot for establishing Gunther the character as opposed to the wrestler. Like the IC champion Gunther, you saw all the workhorse stuff. Now you saw more of the characteristics of who the ring general is. Because before you probably couldn't answer that question other than he has really good matches, they're really physical matches, and that's about it. He's like an intimidating presence. Now you have a more three-dimensional character to work with, and as we saw tonight on Raw, like the crowd was just booing him out of the building.
Yeah.
you know, and
He's
he's
incredible.
he's a very
character-wise.
incredible worker, you know, and it's like he even said, I believe in an interview, he said like along with this program with Jay, he really enjoyed his program with Miz, and those are two guys that you wouldn't think that Gunther would enjoy working with because he's just such a physical, imposing presence. But it just kind of shows how he's
It's flexible.
yeah,
Yes.
not only flexible, but he's like fusioning his like European strong style or British strong style rather, and making it digestible for the WWE audience.
Yes. His matches with Kofi, his matches with Miz, his matches with even Madcap were really good for guys that, not that Kofi's not a good worker, but you know what I think, guys that you wouldn't think would fit his style, right?
Yeah.
So he's very extremely flexible up and down the card, and he's shown that. All right, so pivot, right? So if he's not the world champion and he's still a bad guy, would a tag team title reign interest you anything just to kind of divide him away from the main event scene just a little bit? He brought his ring general presence to the Intercontinental title. He brought his ring general presence to World Heavyweight title. He wants to take Ludwig, who's been sliding down the card immensely, and not sliding, but you get what I'm saying. He's not doing well on his own, to kind of gather him and focus him, because he needs Imperium strong if he's going to get back to the top, and then he could go get Ludwig strong by going after the tag titles.
I would be curious in a tag title reign, but I don't think Gunther really needs that right now. I don't think, at least the characteristic wise, I don't think that would benefit him. If anything,
I'm just thinking outside the box. I don't think it's a bad idea if the tag champs are strong enough to maybe carry the weight.
And that's the thing,
You
because,
know?
like, the tag team division, as we've seen, like, for the past year, hasn't been the greatest. SmackDown's been doing a tremendous job, I think, about building each team kind of.
But it's mid-card.
But
Yeah.
it's not only that, it's just like they're not presented as well as they should be. Now, granted, like when there's a championship match, usually more often than not, at least on the SmackDown side, they'll end the show. You know, Raw, every once in a while they'll end the show if there's like a world tag title match or something like that. With the obviously the the New Day one last week notwithstanding, and I think American Made might have had a shot too. But you got to make those titles feel big time, you know. And I know Gunther did that with the Intercontinental Championship, but I feel like with Ludwig it'd probably be a step back for him as well, because he was really breaking out as his own like singles character. And I really think, like, if you keep both Ludwig and Gunther apart, even though together they're really good, at the same time, it's almost like, well, we can make 2 stars out of this. And when you have, like, the potential.
Yeah, but Ludwig is just swimming in obscurity.
Well, it's also WrestleMania season, so not everybody is going to get, like, that spot.
Yeah, but there are still 0 character traits that would say that he's in for a push coming out of it. He was eliminated in the Royal Rumble in 5 seconds. You know what I mean? He was dog food for Braun Breaker.
I mean, that's not really detriment to, like, the career, you know? He was the first few.
I know, of course, characters go in ebb and flows, but it's not about Ludwig Kaiser. It's always been about Gunther.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like you don't want Ludwig, who actually has been doing a lot of good, like, singles wise. You know, he his first program with Penta, I would say was.
We're not talking, but like I'm talking victories. I'm talking like character traits, not like good work.
Again, he's like heel, so he doesn't need to win often. If you want to take him seriously, sure, but at the same time, that's not his role right now. You know, he's like
his peak was being in Charlotte's DMs of the last 6 months. Ever since Gunther kicked him to the trash,
I wouldn't say that.
He hasn't done shit. Come on, let's be real, Richie. You can't be bright side of everything. What's Ludwig? All right, this isn't a Ludwig Kaiser preview, but I'm just saying, is that journey of kicking him, because they book ahead. They book ahead, right? So is it like, because it was very dismissive of like, why would he tell Ludwig to go make his own, right? Is it for a reason? And would the reason be to give something for Gunther to do post WrestleMania? Because Triple H's title reigns seem to be strategically planned out. So it's just like, all right, well, if Gunther sheds Ludwig now, perhaps we can say that Gunther kind of pushed everything aside and he needs to isolate himself again with Imperium, and Ludwig maybe plus more, right? Is it a tag run, or is it like just cleaning his own house? Because 2 years in a row at WrestleMania, he had gold and he fell off the ledge, and he's not focused because he fell off the ledge. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not talking main event matches. No, literal main event on Hulu matches with Ludwig against Akira Tozawa.
Well, I mean, how Gunther said in his promo tonight, he's been champion for what, over 80% of his time in
It
WWE
might
or
be
something like that.
85, 90 by this
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
It's
you know.
incredible.
So it's just like we haven't seen him at least for a long period of time without the championship as like and what that does to a person.
Yeah.
Like when he lost the IC title, he was thrusted into King of the Ring almost right
Instantly.
away.
Yeah.
So it's like he like will have success, back to back to back, but it's like if this is like his first failure and it's like if they're not doing like the automatic rematches, I think it'd be interesting to see how Gunther would be like after losing like to somebody like Jey, where it's like he does have a losing record at WrestleMania, where he's supposed to be the ring general, and during this entire feud the ring is sacred, right? But ironically, in this whole Jey buildup, he's been doing not very sacred things during this buildup, busting Jimmy open, zip tying Jey. You know
Oh,
what I mean? So it's just like it's a stark character trait to see like he's such a perfectionist. That's his Achilles heel.
yeah.
Is that in his own mind he's perfect, but he's forgetting like who can cost him the most and who could make that mistake, and that person is him. And that's what I'm thinking we're gonna see in that match. It's gonna be Gunther who's making the mistake when it comes to Jey.
Again, maybe he has to get the band back together because those other guys would do that dirty work for him, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, well,
all right. Well, I'm just thinking we're talking post match here, losing
yeah.
wise. All right, winning wise post match here. Gunther wins, continues the dominance, and Jey is just a blimp on his radar towards reigning supreme forever because he's the
Mhm.
ring general, is his ring, and he proves it at WrestleMania. And even the comments of like, I expected to be with Seth Rollins and CM Punk or even Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, not Jey Uso,
Yeah.
right? But he made the best of it. So whatever that means or not. So pretty much say Gunther wins, it's status quo, and it is what it is, pretty much, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and like if Jey loses, then you kind of like, you know, uh, what else do you do with him?
Yeah.
You build him again. You don't do like I don't think his story is strong enough to do the Cody thing, where it's like he loses and then you do a rematch at 42. Like I think people want
This is the
Jay to,
rematch of the rematch of the rematch.
yeah, and I feel like people want Jay to be with Jimmy, but at the same time, Jimmy is actually gaining some momentum as a single star himself, and I think he's been like given a fair shake, and I think he's been doing very well. Just in his,
The speed title's in his future.
the speed title gets a bad rap, and I feel like a lot of people aren't taking it seriously. Like I feel like because I know a lot of people wanted Jimmy to be a part of that U.S. Championship picture, but
Maybe it's just not his time.
yeah, and it's like he's getting those opportunities, and I feel like you're investing a lot in Jay, you're investing a lot in Jimmy, uh, like as of what's next, you still have the Roman story that you could always go back to. You have those interactions with Sammy, with Seth, people that Jay like interacts with like regularly on Raw. So it's like those are still options, even if he doesn't have the championship. Those are still good options if he does have the championship.
Well, that's what we'll get to now.
Yeah.
Gunther stays status quo as champ. Now we'll talk Jimmy Uso
Mhm.
or Jey Uso as champ. Jey, how long is his reign? Right off the rip. How long is he? Is he a transitional champ? Is it SummerSlam? What is it?
Like I think max, it's probably SummerSlam.
So he's 4 or 5 months, something like similar to Priest in a way, right?
Yeah, similar to Priest, but also this is like the babyface version because with Priest's run the entire time, at least for the World Championship, interference galore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every match had interference in it. You know what I mean?
It
And
was the Judgment Day through line, right? So
yeah, and I feel like with Jay, he has a lot of different challengers that you could actually put him with. Like, Braun Breaker, if he loses the Intercontinental Championship, that's the natural matchup right there because Braun defeated Jay for the Intercontinental Championship. Then you have
Logan Paul's a good one.
Logan Paul, Seth Rollins.
Rollins, yeah, he's always Rollins kind of AJ Styles, those Rollins and Styles always seem to be the quintessential first or second contender in your title
Yeah,
reign.
and they're not bad contenders to have, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so
So it's like, again, there's a lot of options, and depending if they have a draft this year, I'm not sure if they announced if they're having a draft or not. Again, the shakeup of the rosters, you could always have different variety in there. I think Cody's title reign really suffered from the SmackDown roster draft of not having a strong enough heel side, and that's probably the biggest Achilles heel that you could give Jay if the heel side isn't up to par to combat Jay's overness in that, where it's like you put somebody there and you're like, he's not going to win. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I feel like Logan Paul would be a really good first contender, and then
like him or Braun, I would think.
yeah, you can just kind of build off of that in a
Mhm.
way too, right? Because honestly, Jay was kind of everyone's first title shot for a little while, right?
Like he was the one with Priest. He was the one with Rome.
Seth,
You know, so
too,
it's like
yeah.
really hard being like that guy in that position and then being the champion.
Mhm.
'Cause I think AJ, like you said, AJ was that guy for a while. Seth was that guy for a while. Kane, I think, was like that perennial, like
Oh,
for a decade. Like
hey, Big Show, yeah. Oh,
you always get like the
brutal
Kane
Bob Evans,
show
yeah.
like world title match. So it's like, like that's probably like Jay's like world championship, where it's like I don't want them to play it safe like they did with Cody. Like you could take a little bit more chances with Jay, I feel like, because I think he's in that place where he's like over that. If you put him with a baby face, that I don't think they're going to turn on Jay right away, unless it's like the kick, the spear, the slash, one,
Yeah.
two, three. If it's like that, I think that there's going to be more variety than that.
Even guys that we don't really think of, like a Rusev, would even be like a good first contender, right? So,
Yeah.
all right, Richie, it's that time.
Yep.
We're at the end.
Yeah.
Who is winning the World Heavyweight title match at WrestleMania 41? The Ring General Gunther
Mhm.
or main event Jey Uso?
I'm gonna go with Jey Uso on this one. You know, it's a cliched story, but sometimes predictability isn't all that bad. Business wise, it probably makes the most sense because can you imagine? Because they like to release those like world heavyweight championship tees after WrestleMania. How much like merch Jay's gonna move? Like if he like if he wins at WrestleMania,
Or the third world countries are going to be wearing the shit out of them if Gunther wins. So we'll have to
like
see.
hopefully hopefully that they don't use too many shirts. But yeah, I think Jay like not only just like from the audience perspective is the right choice, business perspective he's probably the right choice. And with this, I think people don't always see like bigger picture, and like Gunther can get the championship back. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Maybe not from Jay, but maybe it's like another championship on a different brand, if you catch my
yeah,
drift.
I
But
get your drift there for sure.
yeah, so it's just like
Very strategic with Cody beating him, I think, in a way.
yeah, yeah. Like I do think Gunther would be a great choice for Cody to get dethroned by if Cena doesn't do it, but that's a different episode entirely. But yeah, Jay's probably my answer for this. He is my answer for this, and overall, I'm looking forward to the match. I think people were being tremendously harsh on Jay, and I think he is in a good position to prove people wrong. And it's make or break at WrestleMania 41, and I'm going to be watching it either way.
As Triple H would say, I think recently in an interview, it's like Cody's stale as a champ. He still has the highest merch. He still has the biggest pop. You're not in the arena. Do you hear all that? Do you look at our numbers? Do you hear the engagement on social media? Do you see all that? You
Yeah.
expect me to look at a few Twitter eggs and just be like, yeah, he's really not working. So whatever he said today, and what sentiment I talk about with Cody there, you can kind of put all that towards Jey Uso.
Mhm.
I would be a little nervous. I think he would need strong champions coming out of this to kind of set him up for success. But I would be surprised if this lasted past SummerSlam or even Money in the Bank. I think the Money in the Bank winner defeating Jay would be a good way of kind of getting it off him in a like a heelish, shocking way.
Yeah,
to
even
kinda-
if people don't like this guy, Logan Paul would probably be like a choice for that.
with the case, yeah.
Yeah, I think people were either looking at like Logan or Dom or maybe even Braun as
I'm not ready to put
possibilities.
Dom there.
Yeah,
Let's see how Dom does if he with the Intercontinental first. That would be crazy.
yeah, like those were like the popular names that I was seeing.
Yeah,
Popular being like most likely option, not who people like.
no doubt. Oh, Finn Balor is one that we could see against Uso. He is always a fucking first or second. But
Yeah.
all right, Richie, I'm gonna go with you. I think the money's on Jey Uso. I would say it's like 90% Jey Uso's winning, 10% Gunther's winning.
Yeah.
And I'm a little nervous for like quality wise. They're 3 for 3 quality wise, right? With some high peaks. The Intercontinental and really the King of the Ring one was incredible. But just Jay in a big stadium after gassing them with the yeeting and all that stuff. I've been there twice, Detroit and then Philly, where he's had incredible entrances. The crowd's amped, and then the bell rings, and they kind of find a groove that never really gets going. and it's I hope they don't have that here. I hope Jey
to
wins,
be fair,
has a great moment.
you were in the building for the 2 worst Jey Uso matches.
Yes, but I'm saying stadium, big stadium with the big crowd. It's hard because the crowd energy kind of dissipates.
Well,
right?
also it's like it's different from the arena because the noise doesn't like ricochet off the roof.
No, that's what I'm saying. It dissipates. It's there's so much volume that the 50,000 people just kind of, it's hard, right? So
so hopefully that's not how it is.
All right, opener, night one. What do you think? It would benefit.
It would benefit just because the crowd will be hot for it. I don't see it being the opener.
What do you see?
Honestly, it could be as high as a match before the main event.
Okay.
I think it might.
If it was there, I'd be a little nervous.
Yeah, I'd be a little nervous too, which is why I think like the safe spot would probably be like the Taker Batista spot, where it's like right smack
third, fourth,
third or fourth, maybe like 7 matches on night one. So it's like third or fourth would probably be a safe like spot to be in because the crowd's still gonna be hot. And again, the match order just kind of depends on, I think, especially with night one, I think just with hype and quality wise, I think
this is safe to lead. Honestly, this is an opener.
Yeah, because I feel like out of both matches, I think, or like both, not all matches, I think people are like most excited, if not probably like second most excited for this match.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think with it being one of the drawing matches, so to speak, is going to be a benefit for them.
The thing is, the Jey Uso fans care the most, and they're the loudest, right? So,
oh my gosh, yeah.
the detractors aren't necessarily there. All right, Richie, it's a long preview. We did it. We crushed it.
Yep.
We'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, thank you for having me.